All right, let's get this show on the road and see if it'll end up being sent out through the interwebs. See if it broadcasts live to everybody else. It should be live at this moment here. Starting a little bit early, but that's not too bad. Nothing too egregious here. Let me just make sure very quickly. And we're all good to go. Cool. How you guys doing? We have exactly an hour and 52 minutes until the start of the slate, so we'll be here for probably half an hour or so answering any questions you guys might have. My mentality towards slates and really DFS over the last probably 6 months is that I'm kind of now I'm on the boat of like I can't really hate slates. I know a lot of people probably aren't very happy with the slate that we're working with today, but I think every slate's its own little problem, and we can find cute little things to do on each slate. And very quickly, because I just have to talk about it now, we have announced like the soft launch. It officially happens next month, but the soft launch of TrueDFS being partnered with PayDirt. So not only with us, or not only do you have SaberSim through us, you also have PayDirt. So if you get one of our memberships, you could have basically two sim tools, actually multiple different projection sets, two different sims, whether the PayDirt side or the SaberSim side. Like, why? Like, come on, that's a lot being offered here. We don't have any promos going on in terms of pricing discounts because all these prices will go up when we officially make that announcement. So, like, yet again, there's your warning. I don't mean to just stay on that, but I mean, everything's going to go up and so on and so forth, but we won't stay on that too long. Very quickly, I went over this in the preview for Phoenix earlier this week. I think on like Thursday or something like that. Now it says Coda up here. Big lie to you. We are looking at Phoenix here. We're going to kind of go through this very quickly because we at least went over this on Thursday. If you didn't watch that, as I said, this live stream is probably gonna be like half an hour, 40 minutes or so. That'll leave you plenty of time if you want to look at this in more detail. You can check out the preview video, or you can just join the Discord. Yet again through the NASCAR membership. What I really want to focus on, as I said, since we've already gone through this, is what we're looking at here in terms of the top 25 lap leaders and stuff at this track. Okay. Now, when we look at the starting grid for today's race, okay, now traditionally, the data would suggest that, we're looking at somebody in the top four leading the majority of these laps. Now, we have had situations where Allgaier has come from 12th. We've had another Joe Gibbs driver come from 11th. Okay. We've had somebody come from 7th as well. And I would lean more towards that. Now, maybe it's looking at the group we have right now and then working backwards and hoping I find or land on the right thing. But when we're looking at the starting grid today and the laps that we can project for each individual driver, and also with what we can kind of project, or at least what I would envision their speed being, I would lean very much towards a two lap leader type of lineup or event, if not slightly higher, especially with the baked in place differential that we have from two of our three most expensive guys. Okay. When we're looking at the grid today, and honestly, we'll look at the practice laps in a second, just speaking out loud, when we're looking at the grid between Bowman, Eric Amarola, and Allgaier, now I didn't necessarily, or at least, entering the week, I didn't want to go ahead and look at the Xfinity Series data related to drivers because, a lot of people had like swap teams and just a lot of different moving pieces in the Xfinity Series between previous years to now. However, the guys that I would put asterisks by that wouldn't be affected by that would be Allgaier, would be Eric Almirola in a Joe Gibbs car, and then would be Alex Bowman in the Hendrick backed um, car. Like these guys are clearly, head and shoulders above the field. Okay. So just where I'm approaching, I'm using two of these guys in each of my lineups for the most part. I will have some with just one, but for the most part, that's what I'm doing. When we're splitting hairs between Allgaier, and we'll even highlight him here, Allgaier, Eric Amarola, and where is the pole sitter of Bowman? He is right here. When we look at these guys specifically, and we're comparing, we're just going to kind of, I'll go ahead and add, I'll go ahead and add these back in a minute. I just kind of want these guys on an island really fast here. So when we're looking at these three here, we're looking at, and obviously we removed, all the slow laps, so just the top 3 guys, and actually we could probably remove this one as well, and it'd probably bump up, Justin behind. Actually, if I do that, because I didn't remove his last lap here, I removed some other 119s. I don't wanna redo that. Really don't wanna make a lot of changes that I have to undo. Following this here, that's 12548, so that's not really changing much. I believe he's at a 1254 now. Yeah, so we're slightly under Allgaier's speed, but when we're looking at these 3 individual drivers, I firmly believe that these guys will be the ones competing for the race end, or for the win in this race at some point, whether it be through strategy, long run speeds. If it doesn't happen like that, and we'll talk about some of the AK guys who would probably fall in line to be competing to get the race, I'm probably not going to have a decent day. Just straight up, I just don't think I'm going to have a decent day if these guys end up failing. I like Bowman when we're looking at them at an individual level. Now, granted, this might be kind of going against, maybe not the pole sitter specifically, but this might be going against more of where we have seen other lap leaders come from in these past races. But when we're looking at Bowman on pole, I think he's drastically better than the other 3 drivers we have around him. So that's looking at Creed, Sammy Smith, and Connor, right? Forcing Creed on the outside lane, I would be shocked to see Creed beat him on the initial start out of 2. I would be shocked to see Connor beat him out of 2 or compete. I mean, if he does, it'd be 3, 4, 5 laps into a run or whatever. The main concern that I would see would be what Sammy Smith does if he's able to get under Bowman. But for the most part, I would give the early laps to Bowman, if not the first stage. And when we're then looking at what happens after that situation, that should be situations where Allgaier has been able to drive up through the field. He's going from 14th to, you could very easily project Allgaier, not just from the practice speed, but based on what he's done at this track for like third or second, right? And then Eric Amarola with just the experience level in a Joe Gibbs car. I have these guys projected for your top 3 finishers. It's just going to come down to what happens if they can lead laps. Okay, so in my point of view, there's really nothing there's really nothing to talk about for these 3 drivers other than that. I'm not really concerned on what my ownership comes in at either of them. As I said, I'm getting a majority of 2 out of these 3 in most of my lineups. And then if it's just one, it's very heavy on place differential in the 7 and 8K range on this slate. I don't think that's necessarily the part of the slate that we need to really go over and talk about different strategy. Just play these guys right. The slate is going to be determined on what happens with people like Anthony Alfredo. I just went blank. Who's starting 23rd in front of Alfredo? I just went blank, dude. Carson Quapple. And what specifically happens with the value plays, because these guys are so close to one another, especially down here at the bottom of the field. They're all going to project very, very similar. It's then going to come down to what ownership happens and or just where we pivot and stuff. So regardless if we're building 2 lap leaders, whatever the case may be, if you've been building, if you've been looking at anything, it's coming down to the 8K range and 7K range here. And so we're getting ownership and lineups being driven to drivers like where are we at here? We got stuff being driven to people like Jones, Eckes, Burton, Quapple, Anthony Alfredo, Matt Benedetto, Ryan Sieg, right? So if we highlight these drivers here and talk about these, what is this? 7 specifically. If that 2, 3, 5, yeah, it's 7. When we look at these 7 drivers specifically, most distribution. My Alexa was going to go off. I thought she was going to start screaming at me. When we're looking at these 7 drivers, where most of the time, most lineups that are being thrown out, regardless of projection sources, are using 2, if not trying to get 3 of these guys in there, specifically with the upside that Ryan C gives you, the speed that Alfredo both showed. So when we look at, where Alfredo is, let's unhighlight these 3 goobers here. We understand that Alfredo, you can't fake speed and at Phoenix, regardless if you're in different groups. You just don't fake speed at racetracks like this. Like, now, granted, he's not going to be, the fourth best guy, but starting way back, like 24th or whatever, realistically, Alfredo's going to have like a 15th, 14th place car, right? The same thing is going to be said with Quaffle. Now, granted, he hasn't, ran as many laps at or in the NASCAR series compared to Alfredo and other guys, but still, when we look at the speed of that Carson has, he had a bad Q lap. Okay, that's why he's starting mid pack. So we have two guys that are pretty much identical plays, separated by a very little amount of salary at 86 and 7,000. Granted, we're not super tight on salary, so that 1,600 might seem like it's a big deal. It's really not in a slate like this, especially when you have other 7K guys around. Like, these guys are all in the same realm of possibility, right? I would imagine that Alfredo probably comes in the highest own of these drivers that I've highlighted here. So what does that mean? It shows on paper he's probably a good play. It shows that having also just asterisks around, since I do 20 lines, I typically cap ownership at like 60 to 65% on people. I'm not sure what I'm going to get with Alfredo. I'm not done with all my lineups. I'm about 12 through at the moment. But that's what I'd probably put the safety cap at, or whenever we're building lineups. But having less Alfredo seems to be the first route that makes sense to get different. You're not really giving up a ton, because if you don't use Alfredo, well, then you're probably going to be more heavy on Ryan Sieg. Going to probably be heavy on people like Christian Eckes and Harrison Burton, hoping they have a decent run, hoping that Brandon Jones can work his way into 11th or 10th and something like that. So I don't see, building lineups without Alfredo being a bad route, right? As like the first way to get different. Secondly, would be to build extremely heavy with these guys in green. Okay. Now, yet again, when we're looking at projections and we're looking at where are we at here? Now, yet again, you can go through, we kind of already talked about this, but when we're looking at scoring thresholds, okay, this is what makes this slate. Some people might argue that it's not fun, whatever the case may be. When we're looking at, okay, cool. I'm looking at the right thing. When we're looking at if we look at the top 10 DraftKings points per slate, not who the scores are, but just what those numbers are of your, like, once the slate is over, but what were the numbers of the 1st through 10th in terms of DraftKings points. Okay. We're looking at clearly, your lap leaders, kind of irrelevant, right? Like, we're not really talking about that, or like, obviously it's obvious, but when we're looking at the bottom portion of these top 10, and what you could probably argue top 15 scores would probably go closer to like probably even like mid 30s or something. But when we're looking at the bottom portion of your top 10 scores, you're looking at guys who, are lining up right in, low 40s pretty much. Okay. So if we look at the slate, and I mean, this is probably a better way to view it. When we're looking at the slate of, hey, what are ways to get different? If we're really looking at like your 10th best DraftKings play is gonna be around, probably high 30s, low 40s or whatever, it really makes no sense to start pivoting to a bunch of these slower guys who aren't gonna really do anything. Okay. You want to play guys that have high 30s upside. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, yet again, these are who you're necessarily competing against if we're trying to get different. That means that you're going to migrate to people who are starting in the top of the grid, who have chances to rival what the guys in green are going to score. Okay, so that's people like Connor, that's people like William, Nicholas Sanchez, Taylor Gray, Austin Hill, Dean Thompson, Sam Mayer. These are probably the pivots that you would want to start migrating towards and getting more of the guys starting in the top 15 and top 12 versus having people like, by playing like Kyle Sieg and like Garrett Smithley together and, to pay up for like more expensive guys. That's the direction that I'm probably going to head in towards, or like build for and stuff. At least, like, when we're talking about the fork in the roads getting different, one is playing less Alfredo and playing more of the other guys in his similar price range. 2 is migrating up the starting grid and playing guys who have, at least a realistic outcome of scoring, high 30 points. 3, let's say you want to play Alfredo or you're playing, chalk guys, that's when we're getting real different in terms of the value, right? That's when we start. If you're going this route, you have to embrace stupidity and you have to embrace absolute, you know, low owned guys, right? So who makes sense in the value range of like 6,000 on down so we understand where ownership can come in at or go to, okay? My view of that would probably be like people like Ryan Ellis, people like Kyle Sieg seem to be the guys that you would migrate to first off. So like those would probably be the chalk guys and stuff. Um, I'm very much up for playing people like Garrett Smithley, people like Chris Wright, people like Nick Lights. These are drivers that I would use as like the one low owned guy and then just hope like Kyle Sieg blows a tire or like, Ryan Ellis gets involved in a crash or something like that, right? Those are the directions that I would go um, through and stuff. Like when we're just talking about things out loud, like these are what I would, you know, go and build around and stuff like that. I know I haven't looked at the chat yet, but I know we have questions on like stupid Ryan Sieg driving into. That's hilarious. Okay, that's pretty damn funny. I have no worry at all. Okay, now I was thinking of like fun ways to talk about Ryan Sieg right into the elevated portion of the concrete that he plowed into post qualifying. I even thought about bringing the Austin Hill bumper out, but I didn't want to deal with all that. Quickly, are they going to be able to fix it? It's kind of so important, it really doesn't matter, right? When we're looking at the bottom of the bumper, okay, now granted, like these bumpers not the bumper, the front clip of these cars weigh like 13 pounds, the entire body panel, right? As we move up on the body panel, it's very, very thin and moves and gives quite a lot. When we're looking at the bottom area of where that splitter sits, because like, I mean, on mine, like clearly I don't have the splitter, right? But on the bottom ridge, like that's like the thickest, most rigid part of the front bumper. They are not going to be able to repair that, so it's not going to be what it was. However, I don't foresee that having really any issue. Okay, you're just going to see a lot of tape or whatever when they go green. Obviously, he's going to the rear, but he's starting fucking 38th or 30th anyway. It doesn't matter. The main concern is what Ryan Sieg is going to do in terms of his speed, right? When I'm looking at this, we're looking at 26 fastest. I mean, we're sorted by average right here. Clearly not what you want to see. Pretty slow. Um, I don't really have an opinion past this. I'm gonna probably have like 30% of Ryan Sieg. Um, at that point, I don't mean to just be on the fence. I really don't like the data is his practice is quite horrible, right? He hasn't had tremendous runs at Phoenix, but he's starting 30th around a lot of people that I expect to fall through the field or at least get past more. And yet again, when we're going back and looking at people who, yet again, it's not even what Ryan is able to do, but like versus like his speed or not. The main point of Ryan Sieg is that he has real upside to finish in this range of DraftKings points, right? So you have to have ownership to him. We're got like it doesn't matter if he's damaged, doesn't matter if he's slow. The fact that where he's starting, the fact that he's probably going to remain on the lead lap throughout the two stages, okay, Ryan Sieg has a very easy chance of finishing with like mid 30 points today. That would place him, right around 13th to like 11th, right? If he does slightly better than that, well, then we're looking at Ryan Sieg ending the race as like the eighth best scorer, ninth best scorer on DraftKings. That's pretty much the discussion on Ryan Sieg, right? I'll go and see what you guys are saying. Right now, we have an hour and 33 minutes until the slate locks. Let me go through and see what all we were talking about in chat today. Let's see. I'm glad that's. Oh man, 140 you guys here. Thank you very much for sitting here on a Saturday for an Xfinity Series show. I don't mind William at all. I'm probably gonna be over the field on William today, so I would not be very concerned about that. We are just trying to get guys that can actually, compete. Like there's no reason in playing somebody like Jeb Burton or like stuff like that because like realistically they're not going to have enough upside to finish at a point to where they're crossing that 40th threshold, whereas Sawalish does like that. That's why you play guys. So I would, at least for me, Alex, I would not be too worried about that. Smithley or Ellis, heads up between those two. I would lean Smithley since he had such a bad Q lap. Realistically, we got him at a slight discount on a starting position. I would assume he was probably going to start around 30th, 29th. So the fact that we get Smithley starting 36th, he will probably be my highest owned value in the back of the field, just straight up. Now, I have him projected for a whopping 19 points, but in this value range, it really doesn't matter what the projected points are here. As I said, it's more trying to get different there. It's more so hoping things happen. And I just think Smithley's probably I think he has pretty similar upside to Kyle Sieg and Ryan Ellis, like realistically. So that's where I'm at today. Thank you, Jake, for that insight. I really don't have anything else to add today. Um, I think this slate seems really chalky on the surface, but I think you should be able to make like two pivots in most lineups and end up not having super duplicated lineups. Um, it should be really actually here. We'll probably do this right now. We can probably, as I talk about in, or at least the review for the Coda um, thing that I recorded on Friday. Like when we're looking at the contest, review tool, we can kind of work that back on this slate and kind of identify high owned lineups that we probably want to avoid playing. I think nearly any projection source would get you to those. We can kind of do this together. I'll at least talk them out loud. I'm not going to put everything on the screen here. But I would assume that lineups that have probably Bowman, Allgaier, um, I keep forgetting this idiot's name, dude. Carson. I don't know, not Carson. Yeah, Carson. I would assume that lineups that have Bowman, Allgaier, Carson together are probably going to be substantially owned. That combination of drivers will probably be owned by 22% of the field, probably. Um, Bowman, Allgaier, Alfredo would probably be another group that's probably very popular and stuff. So I know that's a group of three and not a group of six, but if you're aware of, how popular those are, then, you can visualize why it would make a lot of sense to just take, one crazy, stupid ass like value play to get different with that group of six or whatever when you finish that line and stuff. Head to head between Almirola and Allgaier, I'm probably going to have more ownership to Almirola just due to the fact that I think Allgaier is going to carry higher ownership, and this isn't just fading to fade. Um, the fact that Joe Gibbs has been so dominant at Phoenix and Richmond and other short tracks, I would be really floored if Eric Almirola isn't leading today in some form or fashion. I really do think that the real race is going to come down to Almirola and Allgaier, with probably Bowman finishing third. Not great. I mean, we're splitting hairs here, right? In terms of trying to project laps led and stuff. I mean, they're all pretty much the same play, with Bowman, probably leading the percentage of him getting the most laps led. But head to head, I will probably take the discounted ownership that Almirola offers compared to Allgaier. Now, granted, realistic chance that I have like 55% Almirola and then like 40% Allgaier. So is that like really a stance? Probably not. But that's probably what I'm gonna do with my own stuff. Have a talk Retzlaff. So he's at 72. I would personally prefer Eckes, Burton to him. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Parker finish well. certainly low, at least from what I would expect. I wouldn't see a lot of things being put towards Parker. I might have him, might not. At the moment, I don't have any Parker. I might end up with like one or two. I don't really have a view on that. So I'm probably not gonna have Creed um, today. Like I said, I don't think, and if like I said, if Bowman gets beat by Creed, I think the slate's kind of done for me, straight up. I'm probably not gonna have Creed since I'm being so aggressive on everybody else up here. I just don't think I'm gonna get to um, Sheldon Creed today. I do like Sam Mayer, 97, expensive, having to pay up. Certainly going to be different, if you just have Bowman and then like Sam Mayer and stuff. So I don't mind that as well. But I probably won't have Creed today. Um, but that said, I mean, I'll give this out. I mean, I did give Creed 21 laps, led 11 fast laps today. It's not too shabby. But I just probably won't end up building with Creed today. I do believe that's it. If you want any more information or any more details, you can just look at my projections. You can throw them in whatever optimizer or sim tool you use if you're partnering with us, and you can get SaberSim through us, and my stuff automatically gets uploaded to SaberSim. Um, when you access SaberSim through our site. Really past that, I don't really have anything else. I think we talked about everything pretty quickly in 26 minutes. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Best of luck in the slate. And yeah, see you guys later. Bye bye. Thank you for being here.